Assalamu alaikum. My name is Imad Galouzi. I'm the Associate Director of Smart Health Initiative here at KAUST. I have the honor today to replace my boss, Pierre Magistrati, who cannot make it today, to introduce our esteemed guest, His Excellency Dr. Majid AlFayyadh. So it is really great honor to be able to introduce such a great leader. Dr. AlFayyadh is the CEO of King Faisal Hospital Research Center, which is, without exaggeration, the leading institution in healthcare delivery in the country. So as a CEO, Dr. AlFayyadh has always been keen on focusing on improving patient experience, work environment, staff development. And in fact, he did that even during his prior position leadership in King Faisal. Prior to his position as a CEO that he was appointed in 2017, he acted as an Executive Director of Medical and Clinical Affairs, Deputy Director of Heart and Project Executive for the Cardiology Information System, and other positions that really we will take too long to cite. So by training, Dr. AlFayyadh started a long time ago, I'm not allowed to say the year, as a pediatric cardiologist and electrophysiologist. He obtained his bachelor in medicine from King Saud University in Riyadh, then moved to US for a long journey, where he completed his residency in pediatric at Tufts University, followed by fellowship in pediatric cardiology at Columbia University in New York. And then in 1996, he received the specialty certification from American Board of Pediatrics, and in 2000, the specialty certification of the American Subboard Pediatric Cardiology at Baylor College of Medicine at Houston. So you see, he really, as a clinician and the training, he followed the top training possible available that someone can access to. So during his career as a clinician, Dr. AlFayyadh developed a passion for research. In fact, he was focused on many projects, and one of them was, for example, identifying the genetic mutations that are linked to malfunction cardiac disorders. And in fact, his early work in 2000, where he was funded by Dubai Harvard Foundation, led to several discoveries that have been continued by other labs in the world, one of them recently in Germany, where they identified the genes responsible for that malfunction. And what surprised me looking to his CV is that even just a few years ago, he could have still find the time to do research and to publish. And of course, he's a fantastic speaker. I hope you will see it in play here today. And he's been invited as a keynote speaker in many conferences here in Saudi Arabia and outside. And today he will be talking about a special topic, resilience, what I learned from a 5-year-old. It's an interesting topic. I'm looking forward to hear it. Dr. AlFayyadh, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Dr. Imad. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're too kind with all these nice words. I'm really grateful and thankful to the invitation and to allowing me to be part of your winter enrichment program. It's a real honor, and I hope I can share with you some of the experiences I have in the field, and I hope you find it useful, interesting, and entertaining. The topic is resilience. And when I first received the contact and the email to speak about resilience and resilience in healthcare, I thought to myself, what do I have to talk about? I'm no psychologist. I don't know anything more than you in the subject. And the truth of the matter is, each and every one of us have been through ordeals, through tragedies, through difficulty, through hardship, that you have seen resilience. So what do I have that I can share with you to make your afternoon interesting? And to answer that question, I said, I'll share based on my experience. I'll share with you my experience. The experience as a cardiologist, as a pediatrician, as somebody who is leading a healthcare organization, one of the premier healthcare organization in the country. And I'll share with you some information or some data or some stories that I think has made a change on me. And I hope you can see that as well. So the story that struck with me at first is a friend of mine who was at the time when I met him was 5-year-old. I'm sharing the experience when he was 6 years old. His name is Joshua Stabil. And Joshua showed me resilience. I learned it the hard way, not the hard way, but through heart. At the time, I was in training at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York, Babies Hospital. It's in Broadway in New York. And I was in training doing my cardiology. Joshua was a healthy 5-year-old running around until he got an infection that affected his heart. It's called myocarditis, a virus that infects the heart and changes the cells, myocytes, into fibrous tissue. So the heart muscle is replaced with a scar. And what that does is that causes the heart just to stand still or contract very poorly, unable to pump blood through the arteries and veins. The brain doesn't get enough blood, the kidneys doesn't, the liver, every organ. And his organs started to get affected. I knew him then. He was coming to the hospital to receive medication to augment his heart, to pump more blood throughout his arteries. And gradually, his heart failure started to progress. And he started to have end organ damage. The last thing that was affected was his muscles, his lungs. He's unable to take breath. And he was admitted to the hospital, and he was put in ventilators. At that time, he was admitted for weeks and months. I got to know him, and he was part of the hospital family. I have seen how his functions deteriorate one after another. I have seen how he started losing his kidneys after he lost his heart, and I was amazed to see him, this bundle of joy, despite all of this. His family was suffering. We were all feeling pain. Luckily, or unluckily, depending on which side, he received a heart. He had heart transplant. His heart recovered, so did all his other organs. And I'm always reminded by the transformation that I have seen with Joshua, how he was destined at the end of his life, his young life, and then transformed into, again, this young, energetic boy. I have seen him bounce back and forth. Many stories like this. People who had cancer, people who had stroke, and we've seen children recover always, or more often than adults. Gave me the conviction that since physically and physiologically the child can recover, I am more amazed not by the physical and physiological recovery of cells in the organ, but I'm more amazed by the psychological recovery, by the mental strength of children, how they're able to focus and how they're able to forget, how they're able to rise above all their ordeals, bounce back. We open somebody's heart to do surgery. 3, 4, 5 days later, we look for them in the floor. They are downstairs in the playroom. They're playing. Whereas an adult would be screaming and moaning and in pain for a week. With that being said, so I finished my training. went back home, got into my business. 20 years later, exactly 19 years later, I get an email from Joshua's mother. It was back in 2017. When I saw the email, that was the first contact since 2016, since 1996. I got an email in 2017. And when I saw the name, immediately I remember, Miss Alison Stabile. I know her. And I was afraid, sort of happy that she contacted me, but I was afraid that she would deliver bad news. But this is what I saw. She said, Joshua has bounced back, lived a normal life. He graduated to be an accountant. This is in his graduation ceremony, and this is his close picture. He was happy and back to normal life. This is Joshua when I left him. His mother asked for my permission to use this picture, me and Joshua sitting at the bedside, to say, basically, she wrote in her email something that I'm going to share with you. This is in a meeting that she presented in Japan, and she says, I recounted the banana story. I'll tell you about the banana story, which I included to illustrate the impact doctors can have on their parents and their patients and families. The story relates how a gesture consideration can offer enormous relief to a stressed parent, particularly when the doctor has taken the time to listen and hear the patient's parents' concern. This engenders trust and confidence. To accompany the story, I included a photo of you sitting by a smiling 6-year-old Joshua's bedside at baby's hospital. Over the years, when I look through my photos, this one has always made me smile. I thought I'd share this story with you because it came from my practice. I see children all the time bounce back more often, as I said, than I see adults. I came to realize, or just a notion or an idea, maybe, just maybe, we are born resilient. And when we grow, we unlearn this resilience. Maybe we get distracted at some point through our life, and then we lose focus of what's important. And then we get distracted, we get worried, we carry more burden than we should. And one thing is, we have always to learn that bouncing back sometimes is not only the right choice, is the only choice. And you have to take it. And then you have to accept adjustment and just go by. This is one lesson that I always think about. I have to say that this is not my idea. I took it from something related to imagination, that children are born innovative and imaginative. We unlearn these skills, and then we cage ourselves within our limited vision. I would argue the same thing about, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take this, since I'm in distance. I hope that doesn't break. Is that okay? That's okay, by the way, with us. I'm a physician. That's okay with cows too. If it's okay with cows, I'll be happy, be great. It's so much different. So I would argue that same thing with imagination. We unlearn resilience. Otherwise, how would not only physiologically the body bounce back more often than when we are adults, but also mentally, children, they tend to bounce back much more easier. It's amazing how you see a child playing with all what you imagine as burdens, and just forgetting about it, going back to sleep comfortably, and then live another day. Now, that's from my limited experience, and as I said, each one of us have more experience or have other experiences that either you yourself or your family or someone you know or loved one have been through atrocities and difficulties and circumstances. But we probably, another perspective that I could provide today is our experience with the COVID. Now, so as a physician, I shared with you one story, but as an administrator and leader in the healthcare, that's another different story. Let me tell you, set the stage for when COVID hit. When COVID started, back in early 2020, this was the healthcare scene. This is what healthcare situation was. So I am fortunate enough to be part of the healthcare transformation. And that is transforming the healthcare in the whole kingdom, the way we deliver care, the way we conduct care, the way we reach people, the way we make decisions in healthcare. This is all being transformed as we speak. And it started in 2017. So I went back and looked at this slide from 2017. And this when I was working with the Ministry of Health at that time. And we were looking at the status of healthcare. What are the issues? And there were many. There were plenty. We were working in silos. There were more than 8 different authorities. Each has their own healthcare system. The Ministry of Health being the largest, the military hospital, the National Guard hospital, security forces. So every ministry or every body, they have their own health system. And each health system works in a silo. They have their own set of standards, they have their own procurement, they have their own, and they don't speak to each other. And not only that, there was furious competition. And unfortunately, it's the wrong competition. So if I, at King Faisal Specialist Hospital, have a successful, let's say, liver transplant program, the other hospital is jealous. So they make another program, another liver transplant program. The experience is diluted. So it wasn't the best of competition because there was no strategy. There was conflict of interest between the Ministry of Health as a provider and the Ministry of Health as a regulator. There are lots of inefficiency in the system. The way we were handling, if you just look at the way we procured medications and the way we distributed them and the way they were stored, you will find tons of inefficiency. Lots of products are brought into the market. We were spending every year 7% more than the previous year. So it wasn't lack of funding. There were funds. It's just that whatever we procure doesn't get to where it needs. Lots of inefficiency, lots of financial inefficiency as well. With lots of bureaucracy, the decision takes forever to be made, forever. And then there is this notion of centralization. There is central, and everybody in the periphery is just waiting for the rain to come from above. So this was the scene before the COVID. Now, I wouldn't say that it was, I would say it's just less than optimal, let's put it this way. And at the time, we knew that we needed to create a burning platform. We need to create a sense of urgency. And these are the outcome of the inefficiency that I just shared with you. So it was unhealthy lifestyles. People were not living healthy. Nobody was getting any regular checkups. Overweight and obesity, we are one of the highest obesity rate in the country, in the globe, highest incidence of diabetes in the globe, with all its complications. And once the complication starts, then you are chasing your tail. It's a never-ending story. The cost is increasing. As I said, there is 7% increasing in spending. We, in 2017, spent 162 billion riyals on healthcare. Ministry of Health alone, 81 billion. And all that spend, that's probably a GDP of a small country, by the way. Just the health sector. With that, were the patients satisfied? Did we have enough beds? Were physicians trained enough? How many nurses we had? All indicators were going in the wrong direction. Not only increasing population, all indicators of chronic diseases was going up, and premature deaths. So a lot of indicators that had a call to transform the healthcare. So we started in 2018 designing how do we want to transform the healthcare. And plans started to set up, and we were geared and ready to charge out of the gate until this. So at the end of 2019, this virus comes out. It hits Saudi Arabia. We admitted the first patient at King Faisal Specialist Hospital in Riyadh in March 17th. And then the rest is history. You have all seen what happened to the healthcare, not only health, to the world. I could not, none of us would imagine that there will be a standstill, not only in your neighborhood or your city or your country, but the whole world will come to a standstill, where all streets will be empty, starting from the Holy Mosque to the busiest city in Riyadh, to Times Square, to movie theater, to just everything. I don't need to describe it to you, lived it, and you've seen it. Lots of disruption. And the major disruption also, to add insult to injury, is disruption in the supply chain. People were out of work. Factories are not working. Even if they work, there is nobody to transport them from where they're manufactured to where we are. Even if you get transportation, then there is concern about you are transmitting the virus itself. Lots of challenges. That hit at the heel of a healthcare sector that I just described. So we were not prepared. We were in a shape that it could have had disastrous effect on the country, because all the agility and mobility and efficiency and strategy and communication that you need to fight COVID did not exist. We have not had it. So, quick and decisive decision had to be made. And I'm telling you, I don't say quite impressed, it doesn't really even come close to describing it. I am proud to be part of an effort that has concluded with the result that I'm going to show. So, mainly three things. A national command center was set up, where has committees that would study the disease, people that would study the need, people will study how we address it, people will study what's the strategy, how we communicate. Everything was taken care of, starting from treatment. Okay, so what do we need to treat that? Remember the good old days of hydroxychloroquine and all the other medication? So people had to go and find that, procure whatever medication. Setting up facilities from ICUs to equipments, personal protection equipment, PPEs, either importing or manufacturing, resolving the supply chain. What you have here is all entities, healthcare and governmental entity, worked through high-level coordination with the Ministry of Health. Now, King Faisal is not Ministry of Health. The National Guard Hospital or the University Hospital is not Ministry of Health. Yet, everybody yielded leadership, including us, King Faisal, to the Ministry of Health. To the extent that we stopped, for example, communicating about corona in our Twitter account. Why? Because we don't want to confuse the public, and that's part of our communication plan. Everybody started adopting what the strategy calls for. And that's the lesson I learned personally from COVID, is my last statement. When we have a common goal, common enemy, a common goal, a North Star that we're aiming for, then we can work and wonders will develop. I have seen myself, when people in one room that were fighting last year about turf, about authority, about power, about credit, everybody putting this down. I have seen silos break in front of my eyes where people are helping each other. Why? Because there is a common cause. Because there is one common cause. And to me, since we had our very first meeting at King Faisal, then meeting at national level, I have used this example whenever I get people around me toward a goal. I try to make you see the common goal so that you forget all the differences with the person next to you, or all the ego, or the silo, or the conflict, or the credit, or the blame, and just focus on what's ahead of us. And this was the secret sauce that created the success. And this is part of a success. So when COVID hit in March, there is a test called PCR. I'm sure you've heard it. Everybody knows now PCR. It took me forever in medical school to know what PCR stands for. But now everybody knows it, including my 15-year-old. So it was not available. The ingredient was not there. Roche stopped sending it to us because they need to send it to wherever, Switzerland or the States or whoever. We were doing some 1,000 to 2,000 tests in a day. And then within, as you can see, within a couple of weeks, it increased to 90,000 tests. Just within a couple of weeks. Now, we do 150,000 tests per day. This is an amazing achievement to increase your capacity this much. It doesn't happen because we paid. No, nobody was willing to sell us anything. It happened because of all the coordination that I just described. It happened because the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was helping the procurement people that the scientific committee has approved. All of these, they work, and the decision was coming within 6 hours. So the inefficiency that I mentioned as baseline has disappeared. The decision-making process was clear, quick, decisive, and examined afterwards. That's why we were able, this is not money. Money did not cause this. The people who use the money to deliver caused this. ICU. So let's just calculate. Back in 2020, in March, or probably April, we did a calculation. So we said there are 35 million population in Saudi Arabia. So let's say half of them are children. So that's 17 million adult. And we know COVID will probably infect 10%. It's very highly contagious. So it will infect 10%. So that's what? 1.7 million infected at one time. And we know that 10% of those will need ICU. That's 170,000, right? Am I correct? I hope I am. So let's say half of those, let's say 10% of those who need ICU, just for argument, will need ventilators. Out of 170,000 individuals who are sick in the hospitals. That's how much? That's 17,000 patients needed to be ventilated, based on the best data estimate, best guess. And how many ventilators we've had? We had 6,000, which means 11,000 will die gasping for air. That's what was ahead of us. That's the challenge we've had. So there is no way we would make it unless, number one, we increase the capacity. we did increase it by 50% within weeks, months at the most. But that's not the solution. The solution is to prevent the 10% from getting infected. And if they get infected, we prevent those 10% to need ICU by early intervention, providing them medication, providing them support, providing them with hospital and treatment and so on. So it's all a continuum. And we were able to do that. The country was able to do that. And this is just an example. Increasing 50% capacity in an ICU is nothing to sneeze at. It's no spit in the wind, believe me. It takes a lot of work. One of the examples, when we were trying to procure ventilators, I'm sure you've heard about the issue of getting ventilators for COVID. So when we were trying to procure ventilators, of course, nobody would sell us ventilator. They would keep them. So we were able to secure from here and there. Of course, the prices went way, way up. An N95 mask that we used to buy it for something like 3 riyals, less than $1, went up to 28 riyals per mask. So, I mean, the prices were just way, way higher. So, but the price wasn't the issue. The issue was availability. What we did is somebody came up with an idea. He said, you know what? In our disposal yard, we have ventilators. What if we fix them? Great idea. So we got the ventilators. They were for disposal. Turns out that they needed a little bit of maintenance here and there, and they're workable. They're outdated, but they work. They could save lives. So we sent to all the hospitals, bring us your ventilators. We had something like, close to 1,000, maybe 800 ventilators. Of those, 80% were rehabilitated and back to work at a cost of nothing. Because we had one of the vendors who had workshops, who had shops at hand, doing nothing because there was no business, they were not selling, and volunteered that we'll fix them all. And fix them he did. And they're back in without costing us riyal. Now, that wouldn't happen in ordinary scenarios. Companies probably may not be eager to fix your broken ventilators because they want to sell you new ones. But because we had as I said, the North Star, everybody was willing to contribute, including those who are for profit, including vendors who are here to sell. So it was everybody coming together. And that is the result. The result of all of this is, among 120 countries, Saudi Arabia ranked the second. And when we looked at the G20, that's the Nikkei Recovery Index. Out of 120 countries, Saudi Arabia is second to China in the recovery. And when it comes to the lowest fatality, Saudi Arabia is the first among the G20. We were the third country which introduces the vaccines, for example. So many achievements happened while we still have to cater to patients who have cancer or who need cardiac surgery, or patient who comes in with a road traffic accident. Less road traffic accident during 2020, but still, there were some. So we were changing oil while we were driving in the highway at 60 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour. So not only we were fighting COVID, but also we were maintaining business as usual. We did not stop. Healthcare sector did not stop accepting or seeing patients. Certainly cancer didn't stop happening in 2020. But also, we were transforming as well. The effort of transformation that I told you about was continuing. So we're doing all three. The health sector was doing all three at the same time after years of not being able to do one of them. Now, the health sector, the resilience of the health sector, when faced with this great ordeal, great challenge, has proven that when coming together, the resilience has shown the effect. But it's not the healthcare sector. As I said, money doesn't buy you success. It's people who use the money. They are the true heroes. And not only, you can see the picture behind me, there are some nurses, there are some physicians, there are lab technicians, but there is a security guard, and there is an administrator. I'm not sure, but also included an IT person. Because when COVID happened, believe it or not, we get a huge spike in cyber attack. Cyber attack. So we have to be in our guard. Not only that, we had to innovate and predict who will, how many COVID cases we're going to get next week to prepare our inventory and our patients and our planning. This morning, we were talking about an AI-driven algorithm that recognizes complexity of pneumonia, chest infection, on CT scan of patients with COVID. That was developed then. Because you do X-ray, everybody has bad X-ray, but who will get worse? Who can you discharge and spare that bed, and who you should keep in the hospital because they are likely to deteriorate? That was enabled by an AI algorithm that developed here in collaboration with King Faisal to recognize patients who will deteriorate. And it was an effect in our hospital. We used it on patients. So this kind of sort of rapid, accurate collaboration could not have happened if it wasn't to the COVID. So one more thing is the development of virtual care. We have increased our virtual care at King Faisal by 838% during the COVID year. And that, in 2020, has sustained in 2021. So that was, I keep saying, that's sort of one of the blessings in disguise, one of the benefits of COVID, because it forced us to remove those patients who do not have to come to the hospital, yet they need care, to shift them toward virtual care. It's better for the patient and better for us, less expensive. COVID forced us to do it. And now it is a normal way of doing things. If you happen to come to King Faisal, and I hope you never come as a patient, you will see that we can see a lot of visits now virtually, including ER, including emergency room. We have many emergency room visits virtual. Not only that, but also workers. 25% of our employees now, they work at home. And when we measured their productivity, to my pleasant surprise, they were more productive than they were when they were when they were attending in person. And there are many reasons behind that, why people tend to be more productive when they are virtual. Of course, not all, but some. And it has to do with the setup. If you set it up right and set the expectation correct and ask people to do it right, then you tend to get better outcome. As I said, these are the true heroes. I have seen residents who stays in the hospital, get this, for weeks, and I mean weeks. They don't go home, or nurses, because they have an elderly at home and they don't want to go and risk their lives. Yet they want to be in the hospital to pay their dues, to do something, to contribute. So between a rock and a hard place, whether they risk infection to their family member or delinquent in their work, they chose the hard way. And I've heard that every time there is a choice to be made, there is an easy way and there is a hard way. And usually the hard way is the right way. And it takes courage to take that. And I have seen, as I said, to the extent that we said, you don't need to sleep in the encore room, we actually vacated some of the housing, patients' housing, as well as employee housing, and we made it dedicated for those who do not wish to go home, and they want to stay in the hospital. And we provided them with food and laundry, and they stayed. they stayed for weeks at a time in the hospital. So I cannot say enough other than just be grateful for their work as not only as administrator, but as a society, also representative of society. So that's what we did facing the COVID and how we faced it, and how I would say the healthcare sector was sort of resurrected, if I may be dramatic about it. So back to Joshua, when I was preparing for this talk, I said, his mother called me or emailed me before making that speech in Japan, so I had to call her. I actually did email, not call, but contact. So I sent an email asking for permission to use that story here for this talk. And she responded, both Joshua as well as his mother, Mrs. Stabil, Alison Stabil, and they were ecstatic and happy that I was going to mention their story, and they had some wonderful words to say. And they shared one more piece of information. And I was worried, actually, it's been maybe 3 years since our last contact. I don't know what happened to him with the COVID. He's an immunosuppressant. So I was somewhat kind of worried that the email may carry bad news. And indeed, this is the news. His mother says that he had relapse. He needed another transplant. He was transplanted, went through, again, same ordeal. But he, again, survived it. He got another transplant, and he was discharged home. And this is his picture, his latest picture. His mother sending me not only her son, but her grandson's picture. And yet again, my friend beats the odds and come back stronger every time. At present, he's living with his second heart and showing amazing power of resilience. Every time he gets when I talk about Joshua, every time he just becomes triumphant and strong, something back hits him and he comes stronger. He reminded me of the phoenix. When I put this slide and I showed it to my 15-year-old daughter, and I was telling her about the phoenix, the Greek mythical figure, and how after thousands of years it burns itself and comes back from the ashes to be stronger. And I thought I was giving her something sort of worthy, only to be, she said, "Dad, that's Harry Potter 5. That's the 5th Harry Potter." Of course, I haven't seen the movie. So that tells you that there is a generation gap between me and my daughter. I didn't know that it was the story of Harry Potter 5. Nevertheless, it sort of is telling about the situation. But since I am speaking here at KAUST I can see some Saudi nationals, but there is good considerable number of international students and faculty. Who am I to tell you about a Greek mythical figure and teach you about it, or even tell you a story about it? There is nothing for me that you don't know. But what I can tell you is this. When I looked at what could I have from my background, my culture, this is a verse from Quran, from Surah Fussilat. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنَّكَ تَرَى الْأَرْضَ خَاشِعَةً فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ اهْتَزَّتْ وَرَبَتْ تَرَى الْأَرْضَ خَاشِعَةً ميتة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت إن الذي أحياها لمحيي الموتى إنه على كل شيء قدير. So this is a verse from Quran 39, and it says, and of his signs is that you see the earth stilled, dead. But when we send down upon it rain, when it rains, it quivers and grows. Indeed, who has given its life is the giver of life, of the dead. Indeed, he's over all things competent. So, to answer the Greek myth of the phoenix, I have this, that I relate to it more. And this is a picture of the desert. Desert is called Rolat Khrem. Khrem Meadows. It's about 150 kilometers eastern of Riyadh. And this is what it looks like in the summer. Dead, nothing. There is this one single lonely tree at the edge, nothing else. However, 2 weeks of rain in September or October, and this is what it looks like. This is from the same location. Unfortunately, the lens is not wide enough in the second one to show you that palm tree, that tree, but this is from the same location. Amazing how resilient is our land. Amazing how resilient is children. Amazing how resilient is the system if we are focused and determined and have unified goal without egos, without silos. Amazing the power of resilience. I hope you enjoyed my talk. This is what I have for you today, and thank you very much. This is what my time allows, Doctor.
Thank you. You are right on time. Actually, you still have a few minutes, but we will take the opportunity for questions. Absolutely. So thank you so much. This is very inspiring talk.
Thank you.
And looking forward. Any question from the audience?
We have a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor. My name is Yahya Al-Harthi. I'm a doctor in the University of Hafr al-Batin. It's a great honor to have this great speech. And in fact, I learned a lot from your speaking, from your nice stories, from the successful story of the Ministry of Health, and then with the great end of your conclusion. So my question of you, since let's have it in the Ministry of Health itself. The world, we're amazed by how the Ministry of Health in Saudi Arabia managed the COVID-19. Now, also we are amazed by how you guys controlled and gathered the whole organization, institutions together, and then have it control this in just a few months, in a few weeks. Now the question is, what is next after COVID-19? Are you going to stay in the same quality, the same arrangement? This is what we need, in fact, to manage and continue on the same great performance. Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you, Yahya. That's a great question. I can tell you that just like same thing we did, and I said about the virtual health, that we started it out of necessity. The platform and is already there. Same thing for telework. The platform is there, and we continue to use it. The same setup, the same spirit, I would say, that brought not only Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health is one provider out of 8. That brought everybody under the Ministry of Health, and we were all proud to be working under that umbrella. Myself, as King Faisal Specialist Hospital, we don't report to the Ministry of Health. I was proud to work under the Ministry of Health with their cause, under their leadership. So did everybody else. And if you asked me 3 years ago, I said, no, I don't report to Ministry of Health. I don't have to listen to them. Yet, when the goal was there, we did. The problem is, I have described how resilient humankind, how resilient our land, how resilient is the system. But I didn't tell you how resilient the virus is. It turns that this thing is so resilient. Every time we fight it, and we do, it just comes back with another, with another version, with another. So let's learn from the resilience of the COVID. The virus itself is resilient. And now we are faced with an increased number of cases worldwide with a new mutation. But I'll be honest with you, those of us in the healthcare sector, we were kind of hoping of a version like the Omicron, where it's highly infectious, yet not virulent. So the Omicron, so far, what we know about it is that it infects the upper airway. It causes headache, fatigue, but doesn't go to the lungs. It doesn't affect the lungs. I can tell you, at King Faisal, in our hospital, not a single patient with Omicron that has lung infection. They're all upper airway. So what happens is that they have cough, they feel terrible, they have bone pain and ache, but they don't have the serious pneumonia and pulmonary destruction that we saw with the COVID. And it is highly infectious. So in a sense, it is basically like a vaccine. It's sort of a stronger vaccine. I'm not saying this as a blanket and we should all get that, but this is the truth is, when this started, we were hoping for an end similar to the Spanish flu 100 years ago. Spanish flu ended similar way. There was a mutation that's highly communicable, highly infectious, yet low virulence. And it gave immunity to the world and done. So maybe, just maybe, this is the end of it. But that virus is resilient. And every time we hit it with the vaccine, we hit it with medication, it comes back from another way. But I can tell you that the setup that started so far, and I'm hoping and I'm counting that it is here to stay. The mindset has shifted. COVID, healthcare after COVID is not the same healthcare before COVID. I can assure you that. The way we speak in our meeting, the way we tackle things, the way we address issues, the way we put strategy is now totally different. It is a game changer. Thank you.
Question over there.
Hello. السلام عليكم.
السلام.
اسمي نورة الحربي من جامعة حفر الباطن. I want to ask, this question is a discussion about the word unlearned it. You said we unlearned resilient.
Yes.
To unlearn something, we learn something else, okay? We learned pain, we learned consequences, we learned depression. So you say Joshua is resilient.
Yes.
What if he's ignorant? He's 6 years old. He didn't know about heaven or hell. His parents will come to his bedroom and find it empty if he's dead. Okay? You said you have a 15-year-old daughter. Imagine one day you go to call her for dinner and you come to her bedroom and you remember she's in hospital, lying in hospital because his heart, something wrong with her heart, okay? Would you be resilient and say, oh, she will come back? Or you say, I hope she will come back? And also, you put the two pictures of Riyadh. And you say the earth is resilient. And you have an amazing quote of Quran, okay? But did you forget the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam that the land of Arab will go back heavens and rivers? So what if this earth is not resilient, but arranged for the big day? So what do you have to discuss about?
Thank you, Nora. Please don't read into my non-medical extrapolations. When I say unlearn, that we unlearn it, that was more of my point of view, my philosophical look at things. And you honored me by being here on stage. So I have disclaimed when I came in that I'm no psychologist. So please don't take it, don't get offended if I have. But as far as the unlearning, you said one word that allow me to disagree with, that maybe he is ignorant. I say maybe we should be ignorant in some areas. Sometimes we learn, and that's again my personal opinion, sometimes we worry too much. Sometimes we lose focus. Sometimes when we think about a problem, we worry about it that it's the biggest problem. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we realize that's no big deal. Just like if you ask a high school student, their main concern is to do well in exam. Well, guess what? When you are 50, the result of exam doesn't change much because your success is not bound in exam. Those who are old enough will tell you that. When you go to buy a car, you think that is a major decision at 18 that would change your life and you have to get it right. It's just a car. But at 18, you don't see it that way. You see it a life and death decision. When you are, well, I was going to say when you're going to get married, but again, all decisions, when you are destined to make them, you see them the biggest decision, and if you get them right, you are going to screw up your whole life. The truth of the matter is, no. It's just a period, and you will go to another stage. So my point of view is, maybe we should be ignorant at some times. Maybe we should look at decisions for what they are worth, not what we think they are worth. Again, this is my point of view. I would be happy to discuss it, but I don't want to digress in a small corner. As far as the hadith that you've mentioned, yes, but I don't have to bring everything in our culture. I thought that verse from Quran tells the story and gives the point that I really want to deliver, is that when you see something that is that you think is dead or has absolutely no use, there might be a small seed there. Just search for it and it will grow back. Just like Rodat Khrem, every year becomes the green meadow that I showed. So I don't know if I get your comment correctly, Noura, or not, but as I said, some philosophical aspects are my point of view, and I was honored that you asked me to share it with you, and I still believe in them strongly, by the way.
So I will ask last question from the audience, then there are a few from online, because we have several attendees online, and we have few questions.
I'd love to, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, hello. I have a question about the resilience. What are the times that we don't have to be a resilient people? If there were times that we shouldn't be resilient, why that these times we don't have to be resilient?
I can't think of any, because if you think of a place where you should just give up and surrender, when you asked your question, what came in my mind is لا تقنط من رحمة الله. Never give up, and that's a verse of Quran. So why would you, if you are bombarded with issues or think that you are helpless, why would you give up without trying to do your best? Now, this is not an invitation to waste your time and effort and in a dead cause. But again, I think you always try to find the best of the situation and try to make the best out of what you have. And just know that there is always, if you fall, you can always get up. If you stay down, one or two people will feel sorry for you, but then will people get used to there. But you can only help yourself, and people will try to help you there. But if you can't help yourself, then nobody will. Nobody can. Let me correct. Nobody can help you if you can't help yourself. So I think from my own personal experience, you can always find a way. You can always search for the way to do better, and this is after you examine all options and just as I said, the verse that comes to me is never give up from God's mercy. لا تقنط من رحمة الله.
So there are a few questions. Some of them have been addressed, but I will paraphrase when it's needed. One of the first questions is, do you believe that the main cause of most diseases is emotional trauma? This is something addressed earlier, but...
let me tell you a story. Some 15 years ago, somebody that I know came to our emergency room. At the time, I was a resident at King Faisal. So he was somebody who's wealthy and came to the emergency room, had a blood test because he had cough, something minor. And the blood test came back showing that he has leukemia, showing one white cell count of 100,000. I'm not exactly sure of the number, but anyway, he had leukemia. So he immediately said, that's why I'm feeling sick. So he felt sick, and he was devastated by the news. He couldn't bear the sight of the hospital. He got out of the hospital against medical advice. First thing he did, he called the airline, booked a ticket to the United States, went to the States, to a hospital. Coming out of the airplane, his brother was wheeling him in a wheelchair because he could not, he was sick, he had cancer. Turns out is that were a wrong test. When he got to the hospital there, his blood was normal. He did not have leukemia. There was a miscommunication, a mistake in the lab. And he wouldn't wait for that test to be confirmed. Yet, he felt so sick that he was unable to walk. Now tell me if that patient had leukemia that caused him to be that sick. Now, on the other hand, we know for a fact from studies and data that people who are optimistic and have positive outlook, they tend to do better. And we know that people who are upbeat and go home after surgery, they tend to have less complication, they have better outcome, compared to those who continue to moan and complain and unable to face reality. So a lot of it has to do with their mental status, their preparation, and also part of it is education. The cases of how sickness, a lot of it is mental, doesn't need to be proved. A lot of the recovery and well-being, and on the other hand, sickness also play part, psychology and mental health play a big part of it. When we look at the reason for recovery, and I'm ashamed to say this, but I'll say it. Physicians, doctors have the least compared to what the nurse can provide, what the family provides, what the patient can provide to his own or her own wellness. Us physicians, our contribution is minimal. It's important, but it's not the major. I would say 80% lies in nurses.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Your Excellency. Really very inspiring talk, and thank you for the question from online audience and you, and thank you for your time. Please.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Shukran.
Thank you. We have a small gift for Your Excellency as a token of our appreciation.
This talk was about the food. We are thinking in the luxury, to have more, and that is not sustainable. We need to use what we have. It's all what you need to be happy and to be comfortable.
This is our composting facility, our organic waste recycling facility. It's a great way for cows to become more sustainable and getting closer to a zero waste cows.
resilience is when life hits you really hard, that you get back up.
Resilience is bouncing back. It's about never give up and keep moving forward.